Accident again. Oh, God protect your people. The people of Iwo exclaimed. On the 19th day of August 2011, Emeka's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Kingsley, were involved in a terrible car accident on their way back home from work. The both died on the spot. The people of Iwo, a vibrant city in Osun State, were shocked and saddened by the news of the death of Mr. and Mrs. Kingsley. Emeka, the only son of Mr. and Mrs. Kingsley, who was at his third year in university, was devastated. He had never felt such a deep pain before. Years later, Emeka graduated from the university after facing so much hardship as a result of his parents' death. Years passed after Emeka's graduation. He decided to relocate to Osun State capital in search of greener pasture. He consulted an agent to help him get an apartment. After so many search for an apartment, the agent finally found a self-contained apartment at house number 11, Ikorodu Street, Osogbo. He moved in the same day. Months passed. Emeka had always been a kind and friendly person, loved by all the tenants in the compound where he lived, except for Mr. James, who disliked him for no reason. Despite struggling to make ends meet, Emeka had a smile on his face and a helping hand for those in need. Many times he would go hungry, running errands for his co-tenant. Most times, he will be sent to pay compound light bill. Some tenants will ask him to help them remove clothes when it wants to rain, while others will ask him to help them close their windows since he is always at home, jobless. One day, Emeka was sent to the filling station by his co-tenants to get some fuel to pump water since NEPA, as they are popularly called in Nigeria, has refused to give them light when he met a stranger whose car was bad. The stranger pleaded with Emeka to give him a helping hand. Emeka, who is always kind to all, quickly did so. The stranger asked Emeka what he does for a living after he successfully fixed the car. Emeka revealed to the stranger that he studied mechanical engineering in university, but that he is still searching for a job. The stranger asked Emeka to apply for a job in the company where he works, that he will help him secure the job. The next day, Emeka took a bold step and applied for the job at the renowned company where the stranger works in the city. He had heard about the company's rigorous selection process, but he was determined to try his luck. Perhaps the stranger has promised of helping him secure the job. Finally, the day of the interview arrived. Emeka borrowed a suit and sent off for the company's headquarters. He arrived at the company at about 7:30 a.m. in the morning. He was directed to the waiting room by the receptionist. He sat in the waiting room. He couldn't help but feel a sense of nervousness. After some minutes, the interview commenced. After the first two persons were called, Emeka's name was called. He stood up straight and walked confidently into the interview room. The interview went smoothly, and then Emeka showcased his skills and experience. A few days later, he received a call from the company offering him the job. Emeka was overjoyed and felt blessed to have such an opportunity. As time passed on, Emeka's hard work and dedication earned him a good income in the company, and he was able to afford a brand new car. One day, Emeka decided to show his new car to his landlord. His landlord had always been good to him during Emeka's time of struggle. He always shared food items to him. Mr. James, who had always hated Emeka, watched him as he parked his new car in front of the compound, beaming with joy. His landlord congratulated him, but little did Emeka know that his life was about to take a drastic turn. From that day on, Emeka began to experience a series of misfortunes. He fell ill with an incurable disease that left him weak and helpless. Despite his best efforts, he was unable to recover, and eventually, one day, Emeka's landlord told him that he would take him to a prophetess who would heal him of his incurable disease. Emeka agreed. The next day, Emeka was taken to the prophetess by his landlord in Cross River State. The prophetess told Emeka that the sickness was from his mother's family and that the only solution was to go back to his mother's grave to cry for forgiveness for 7 days. Emeka was surprised but had no other option. He did exactly what the prophetess instructed him to do. But after visiting his mother's grave, asking for forgiveness and healing for 7 days, everything got worse. Weeks later, Peter, Emeka's best friend and neighbor, offered to take Emeka to his village priest since the sickness still persists. Peter explained to Emeka how his village priest has been very good in healing incurable diseases. He even explained to Emeka that his village priest healed a man born blind, also raised the dead. He explained to Emeka that his sickness is nothing to his village chief priest. Early the next day, Emeka and Peter arrived at Peter's village. Peter led Emeka to the priest. Upon arrival, Emeka was asked to remove his shoes and was given a small clay pot. The chief priest looked deeply into Emeka's eyes and said, "He whom you showed your new car is responsible for your predicament." Immediately, Emeka screamed, "I said it, my landlord, my landlord. It is him. The way he looked at me the day I was showing him the car, I know he never had a good intention for me." The chief priest kept silent for a while and then said, "Young man, you have an option here. If you want a revenge, return here after 21 days, and then he who inflicted you with this sickness, I shall return it to the person." Emeka nodded his head and then looked at Peter, his friend. They both nodded together. Early the next morning, Emeka and Peter parted the village and then arrived back to the city. That night, Emeka could not sleep as he was busy thinking about what the priest had told him and why his landlord could be so wicked. 7 days later, Emeka received a letter from the company he worked. It was a termination letter due to his long-term illness. Emeka lost his job. As Emeka's health continued to deteriorate, he became isolated and withdrawn. He struggled to pay his rent, and his landlord threatened to evict him. Emeka's friend and neighbor tried to help him, but they were unable to do so. Days turned into weeks, and Emeka's condition worsened. He was bedridden, unable to even feed himself. His landlord, who had once been friendly, now ignored him. The other tenants who had once been his friends now avoided him, except for his favorite neighbor and friend Peter, who continued supporting him with food. One day, as Emeka laid in his bed, feeling hopeless and defeated, a stranger appeared at his doorstep. The man introduced himself as Brother John, a pastor from one of the churches Emeka visited when he arrived the city newly. He had heard about Emeka's condition and had come to visit him. Brother John was shocked by Emeka's condition and immediately began to pray for him. He also bought food and clothes and helped Emeka with his daily needs. Emeka was touched by the pastor's kindness and began to open up to him. As they talked, Emeka shared his story with Brother John, including what the priest told him about his landlord, that he is behind his misfortune. Brother John listened attentively and then told Emeka that he believed his sickness was not ordinary, but rather a spiritual attack. Brother John offered to pray for Emeka and to help him uncover the truth behind his misfortunes. Emeka agreed, and the pastor began to pray for him. As the pastor prayed, the Holy Spirit filled the compound, and suddenly a strange thing happened. Peter, Emeka's friend and favorite neighbor, began to shout, "Please stop that prayer. My body is burning me. I will confess. I will confess. Stop the fire. It's burning me." All the tenants were surprised and gathered at the front of Emeka's house as Peter began to confess. Peter revealed that he had been envious of Emeka's success from the day he got a job, and that he took sand from Emeka's car and then his shoe when he left for work. He had presented these items to a native doctor who had inflicted Emeka with an incurable disease and caused him to lose his job. Peter continued, "I also bribed my village chief priest to lie to you concerning your health, so that you will think the landlord or Mr. James is responsible for your sickness." As Peter finished his confession, the fire was so much on him, he began to undress himself. Suddenly, he ran into the streets. The pastor prayed for Emeka, and he was healed instantly. 2 weeks later, Emeka received a call from his company, offering him his job back and providing him with a brand new apartment. Emeka was overjoyed and grateful to God for his life. Emeka learned a valuable lesson that day: to be humble and discreet about his success, and always trust in God's protection and guidance. From then on, Emeka lived a life filled with gratitude and faith. If you love this story, please click the like button. Also share. Please don't forget to subscribe for more African stories. Thank you.